welcome back to my channel, everyone. I am finding myself in my home with a few quiet minutes. My kids are out front playing, so I'm taking whatever time I can to film this for you guys really quick. So hopefully they will stay out front. It's finally a nice day here in Utah. It's sunny and like almost 50 degrees, I think. So they're having fun playing outside. Hopefully I can get this recorded really quick. You might hear little pitter patters of my dog's footsteps going back and forth, just them running around very anxious because they're not outside with my girls. So, okay. Today I wanted to finally film for you guys how to read a crochet pattern, a written crochet pattern. I know when I first started learning how to crochet, I didn't really know how to read a crochet pattern, and I depended a lot on different YouTube videos. As I have knocks on my door from my children. What? Oh my god. Anyone want to babysit for a little bit? Okay, where was I? When I first started learning how to crochet, I couldn't... William, come here. Come here. I couldn't read written patterns, so watched a lot of YouTube tutorials, and obviously that's why I love doing YouTube tutorials and videos for you guys, for those that don't know maybe how to read a written crochet pattern. But I get people all the time asking, whether that's in DMs on Instagram or on TikTok pretty frequently now. I find that hanging out on TikTok, there is a younger crowd and maybe they haven't really learned how to crochet yet. So for this video, I'm going to show you guys how to read a written pattern. I've touched a little bit of how to do this on my TikTok and doing like quick little tutorials on how to read patterns, but there's only so much you can do within a 1 minute time frame on TikTok. So I'm going to compile all of that into one video here for you guys. And for this video, I'm going to be showing you how to read the Streetlight cardigan pattern. And if you're not familiar with this pattern, it is a video tutorial on my YouTube, and it is also a free written pattern on my blog. So I am going to take that pattern and kind of show you the ins and outs on how to read like the materials and the gauge and the note section. And then I'll go through and I'll kind of show you how to read like the different rows and what different parts of the pattern means and everything like that. So if you are curious on how to read a crochet pattern, keep watching. And if you already know how, then this video is not for you unless you want a little refresher. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you have any other requests that you want to see from me, then just let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to subscribe and all that stuff that all the YouTubers tell you to do. Turn on the little bell, subscribe to my channel, leave me a comment and a like if you want, or don't. It's whatever. But thank you guys so much for watching, and now let's get on to reading a crochet pattern. Okay, so here is my Streetlight cardigan pattern, and again, if you want to follow along with the pattern so that you can see it up close, you can just pull it up on my blog. I'll have the link in the description if you want to follow along on what I am talking about. It might be a little bit easier to see. Okay, so this is just the cover photo. Doesn't really matter, but when you get to a written pattern, a lot of the times it'll have a description, it'll have copyright, just all that type of stuff. And so here's my just little description of the sweater, and then right here is the materials section of the pattern. So this lists everything that you will need to make the actual sweater, and you can see here that I have listed a bulky weight yarn. And the specific yarn that I used is softball yarn from Lion brand, and then the color that I used is the color Mercury. So that's pretty easy to understand, right? Usually everyone is like, knows how to read that part. So a lot of the times this is what starts to trip people up, is all of these numbers within the parentheses here and here and here. So the most common emails that I get when people are confused about patterns is usually people who have never made a garment before and don't understand that everything is listed for different sizes. So this right here is the amount of skeins that you need within the pattern. Now, not every pattern might not list this. It just depends on the designer. But you can see that I have written out every skein that you will need depending on what size you are. So let's move down here really quick. And under the size section, it says extra small, small, medium, large, extra large, 2X, 3X, 4X, 5X. So that is all the sizes that is within this pattern. And this is the way that you read the pattern as well. So if you were making a size small, then you would only read the number that is the first number within the set of parentheses. If you were making a size extra large, you would read the fourth number within the parentheses or the fifth number total within this number sequence. So that is how you know what size and number to focus on. I always recommend people to print out their pattern and then highlight the size they're doing. So if they're making a size small, print it out, circle or highlight every single number that is the first number within the parentheses to try and keep yourself from getting confused later on. So let's say we're making a size small. You can go up here and you can see these are also written out in that same sequence. So the 9 is for extra small, the second 9 is for small, the third 9 is for medium, large, extra large, 2X, 3X, 4X, 5X, just like that. So you know, oh, I'm making a size small, it's the first number within that parentheses or the second number total, then I know that I need 9 skeins of this particular yarn to make it. Or if you're not using this same exact yarn, which a lot of people substitute their yarn depending on what they have available, I also have the yardage amount listed. So you would know if you're making a size small, you can go up here and read the second number within the sequence, the first in the parentheses, that you need 705 yards of bulky weight yarn. So that's how you would read the materials section in terms of figuring out your yardage or your skein amount. So again, if you were making a size 5X, you would know to just focus on this last number here. You would need 920 yards or 12 skeins total. So that's how you figure out the yardage. And then of course the next thing that is listed is the crochet hook size. I have a 6mm crochet hook listed, and everybody's gauge and tension is different depending on how tight they crochet or how loose. Oh my god, okay, I gotta go get my kids' popsicles. BRB. Okay, now I have to remember where I left off after getting my kids' popsicles. So, crochet hook, blah, blah, blah. You need to make sure that you are aware that depending on what kind of yarn or hook or your tension, or even maybe you're like really mad that day, so you're crocheting like super duper tight, that's all gonna change the gauge of your pattern and maybe what kind of crochet hook you need and what size. So we're gonna get to that, but just know if this says 6mm crochet hook and you end up not meeting the gauge with that size hook, you can always size up or size down your hook. You might need a 5.5mm or you might need to size up to a 6.5. So it just totally depends on the person. And then next listed is a yarn needle, and lots of crochet patterns, pretty much basically almost all of them, you're gonna need some sort of yarn needle or tapestry needle to weave in your ends. And then tape measure is important for most of my patterns because you're gonna have to do some measuring for sizing and stuff like that. And then of course scissors to trim the extra yarn that you have hanging off your project after you weave in your ends. So that's how you read the materials section. We've already gone over the sizing section, which lists all the sizes that are in the pattern and what order you're going to be reading them in. And then next, which is very important, is the gauge section. I know a lot of people just skip right over this gauge section, and I will admit I have skipped over it plenty times myself when I first started out, because I'm like, meh, it's no big deal. Like, I don't need to check the gauge. But when it comes to sweaters or clothing, it is pretty important. If you are making something like a blanket or, you know, something like a scarf, it's really not as important if you are off by a couple inches. But when you're making a sweater, those couple inches could mean whether your finished garment is going to fit or not. So in this pattern, my gauge is 4 by 4 inches. So that is a square. Oops, sorry, it's getting all blurry. So 4 by 4 inches, and you're just picturing a square, and that's how many stitches fit within that square. So 10 herringbone double crochet. Let's see. And if you don't know what HBDC is, I have a nice little fancy abbreviation section. So herringbone double crochet, which is the stitch in this pattern. So if you're ever looking at something within the pattern and you're like, I don't know what that stands for, go to the stitches and abbreviation section. If you don't know what CH stands for, go to the stitches and abbreviation section. CH, chain. So anyways, okay, back to gauge. If it says 4 by 4 inches, 10 herringbone double crochet by 7 rows, that means that these 4 inches across, you're gonna fit 10 herringbone double crochet stitches into it. And by 7 rows, so if you're measuring up like this, your rows, because this sweater is bottom up, so then you'll measure the rows, and every single row that fits within those 4 inches is 7 rows. So I can fit 10 stitches by 7 rows into a 4 by 4 square, and that is our gauge. And so before you're starting off, you can make a gauge swatch, and the gauge is obviously herringbone double crochet, so you could start off by working 7 rows of that stitch and making sure that you can fit all of that within the 4 by 4. Could even do something bigger, a little bit bigger than 4 by 4, so that when you're measuring it, you can see that all of those stitches and all those rows fit into the 4 by 4 section. Hopefully that makes sense and I'm not losing you guys. So you can start off by making a gauge swatch using the 6mm hook, and then you know that if you measure, if you make your swatch and then you measure it and you see that you are getting 12 herringbone double crochet stitches instead of 10, then you will know that your hook is too small and you're crocheting too tightly for the gauge, and that you need to size your hook up. So maybe you need to go up to a 6.5mm. So if you have too many stitches, that means you're crocheting too tightly and you need to size your hook up. If you have too little stitches, say you only come up with 8 or 9 herringbone half double crochet, then you need to size your hook down. So maybe you need to go to a 5.5mm crochet hook. So it's fine if you have to adjust your hook size a little bit. I'm not gonna get super too in depth with making gauge swatches. I guess I can always make a separate video about that, because that's a whole other thing that you could learn lots about, and I'm trying not to make this a super long video. But that's how you would read the gauge section. And I always recommend making a swatch before moving on. If you absolutely do not want to make a swatch and you just know you're the type of person not to do it, then I would at least recommend when you're getting into the pattern, like say once you're working up the back panel, that you stop and you measure it as you're making the pattern, and just to be sure that you are getting 10 stitches across. Okay, so next section of the pattern, I also have a finished sweater measurement section. So this just lists off all of the different sizes for all of the different size Did that make sense? No. This lists off all of the different measurements for all of the different sizes. So the extra small size is 18.5 inches from the center back, which is the hem to neck. So that's when you're measuring the finished panel, like in the finished sweater, from the bottom hem up to the back neck is 18.5 inches, 19 for a size small, 19.5 for a size medium, etc., all the way up to 5X. And then this is the chest width. So I always measure my chest width just underneath the armpit area of the sweater. And you just lay your sweater out flat, measure it across, and an extra small is 18 inches wide, small is 20 inches wide, and you can just read all those numbers going up. And those numbers are to fit the bust size of these bust sizes. So I've also listed off, this might look a little familiar to you. If you are teeny tiny and then your bust size is 28 to 30, like you will recognize this off of bra sizes like 32B, whatever. So you know when you're making the sweater, you should check the measurements and find your bust size. And if you're like, okay, well, I'm a size 33, which is what my bust chest width is 33 inches, then I would go here and I would say, okay, 32 to 34, I'm 33, so I know that I need to make a size small. And then the size small is going to be 20 inches across total. And there's plenty of positive ease already written into the pattern. I get people asking all the time, like, well, I want mine to be oversized like yours is in the photo. Do I need to size up? Like, depending on the pattern, I get this a lot for my Happy at Home hoodie. No, you do not. I have already written the positive ease within the pattern. There is no need to size up. All you have to do to find your size is to check your bust size. If you don't know it, go ahead and measure your bust size. There's lots of YouTube tutorials out there on how to do that. And then you can just coordinate. So you're like, oh, I am a size 52. Then you know that you are 52 to 54 inch bust size. And you could come up here and know that you are going to be making the 3X. Okay, moving on, and then this is just the sleeve sizes for all, the sleeve measurements for all the different sizes. And then here at the bottom, I also have a notes section. So this is just listing off anything important that you would need to know within the pattern. So like a lot of times it'll be the chain 2 does not count as a stitch, or just like explaining the way that the pattern is going to come together. I like to put that in my notes as well. Oh my gosh, this video is going to get so long. Okay, so the abbreviation section, obviously this is just the definitions and abbreviations of different stitches and terms that you're going to need to know within the pattern. And then that gets us to the pattern section right here. And my pattern, I start off with the back panel ribbing section. You can see here that it's got a ribbing. And so that's where my sweater starts off, is the back panel at the bottom ribbing. And you start off by chaining 11. Now, this is a number by itself, so every single size makes it. You don't have to look at it and go, oh, well, I don't know if I need to make that. If it's listed on its own, then every size is going to make it. So you would chain 11, and then moving on to row 1, it's the only row listed, and you know you need to make it, and the RS stands for right side, so that's the right side of your pattern. So you know in row 1, chain 11, work 1 single crochet in the second chain from hook in each chain across, turn. Now, I'm not going to explain the stitches and all of that within the pattern. Hopefully you guys know what all of that means. I'm trying to break down on how to actually read and interpret a written pattern. So then you go to row 2, and you know that you also make that, and then it lists off, this is where people get confused if they're not familiar with making garments. Rows 3 through 45, 49, 53, 59, all the way up. And they're like, hey, like, wait a minute, like, I'm confused. Am I supposed to work rows through 3 through 45 and then go, and is that my stitch count? Like, they just don't know. So when you're reading a pattern, all of the numbers that are at the beginning of the row are your row count for all the sizes. So rows 3 through 45. If you were making a size extra small, this is what you would read, rows 3 through 45, and that's all you need to know. Because again, like I said before, you're focusing on the number where your size is in the placement. So if you're making a size small, like I have circled here, then you would only read work rows 3 through 49. You can ignore 45 because that's for an extra small. You can ignore 53 because that's for a medium. So you would just focus on working rows 3 through 49. So you know that you stop at 49. You don't go to 53 because you're not making a medium. And all you do is repeat row 2 is what it has listed. So that's how you read the numbers in the beginning, and then at the end of the row, there's more series of numbers in parentheses, which confuses people again. So once you get to the end and you see more numbers in parentheses, that is always going to be the stitch count of the row that you just completed. So after doing all that ribbing row and we're starting on the main body and you're working 1 stitch into each row of the ribbing, and oh my gosh, my dang dog. And it has all these numbers listed, then you know if you're making a size small that you're focusing on that second number and that you should have 49 stitches total. It doesn't mean that you need to work 49 more stitches. It just means that that's your stitch count when you're done with that row. So numbers at the beginning of the row is your row count. Numbers at the end of the row is your stitch count. So that's how you read that. And then a lot of the times, let's see if I can find an example. This is the same stuff here. Here's another good part to note. If some of my patterns, and you might come across this when you're making garments, is some of the times it'll have dashes dashing out the number. That just means that there's no row count or stitch count for that size because you should have already tied off and moved on. So basically, if your size has a dash there, like the 4X and 5X, you don't have to do it. You've already tied off and moved on to the next section. A lot of the times within the pattern, it will say, you'll also have, not only will you have parentheses within the row count for the different sizes, but within the actual instructions in that row, it'll say right here, you will have a gap of 5, 5, 5, 5, 7, 7, 7, 7, 7 stitches on the back panel left unworked. So that is obviously not at the beginning of the row or the end of the row. So this is just the instructions within the written pattern. So the size extra small has 5 stitches left unworked. The small has 5 stitches left unworked. The 4X has 7 stitches left unworked. So you're just going to read it the same exact way. Okay, hopefully that was helpful for you guys. I tried to break down what I thought was the most important part of reading a crochet pattern, which is obviously all the crazy numbers and different stitch counts and row counts. Let me know if I missed anything or if you have any other questions. You can leave your questions in the comments, and I love chatting with you guys and just talking with you guys in the comments. So if you have any questions, let me know. If I miss anything that you want me to touch on or explain a little bit better, I can do that. And then as always, let me know if you have any video requests that you want me to cover. And hopefully you guys found this video helpful. I'm going to try and edit it this time and actually post the edited version, unlike my last video where I posted the unedited version by mistake, but we all make mistakes, right? Okay, hopefully you guys found this helpful. I will catch you in the next video. Hopefully this helps explain a little bit more on how to read my patterns. So stay tuned for more.